Welcome everyone, my name is Lim and today I'm going to give my early impressions on We Happy Few. As always, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. If you want to see more, maybe consider subscribing. As it has been released in an early access state, I cannot properly review We Happy Few. The game isn't finished and there are multiple patches on the way, but I can give my critique and general impressions on the game that was presented to us at launch. So if you look around at the general impressions people have had for this game, a lot of the people have been pretty negative about We Happy Few. Whilst there are some issues and things that need to be dealt with, I think that some of the criticism for this is unfair. A lot of it seems to be born of the fact that this game is not what people were expecting, and the blame of that lies at the marketing of the game itself. The amazing trailer that we saw at E3 was the small prologue of the game, and it led consumers to believe that this would be the game we would be getting, which was a cross between BioShock and the Stanley Parable set in a dystopian 1960s England. That isn't what we got. We got a survival crafting game, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I think a lot of people felt misled. So what actually is We Happy Few? Well, as I said a few seconds ago, it's a survival game based around a drug called joy. If you take joy, the world suddenly becomes a better place. Everyone is happy, rats suddenly become piñatas, and the world looks considerably nicer. If you don't take joy, however, you're considered a downer, and things generally take a turn for the worse. Policemen with horrendously creepy masks will hunt you down and beat you, and people who you come across in the street will attack you. As a general rule, most people want to hurt you in this world, so it's a good job you can make a pointy stick to deal with them. Unlike many games in this genre, We Happy Few actually has an end. Well, it will have an end when that bit is actually made. The goal is to escape the town, and eventually you will be able to do that, and you will be able to beat We Happy Few. Before you do though, you'll have a series of missions to complete, ranging from finding a beehive to pay a honey toll to cross a bridge, to mending broken pipes and equipment you find lying around in the world. The latter leads to one of the biggest problems that the game has: RNG. Some of the items you need to complete missions have to be crafted, and to do that you have to find resources that are scattered throughout the world. That seems reasonable. The only problem is though that the world is procedurally generated, and the items in this world are also procedurally generated. So there's a chance that the one thing you need to beat the mission hasn't actually spawned into your world, so the quest is essentially unbeatable. This is something that needs to be fixed, as items related to quests must be available in the world, otherwise all sense of progression is lost, and it kind of makes the game pointless if you've poured a bunch of hours into your playthrough only to fall at the final hurdle based on broken RNG. Let's talk about that crafting system I just mentioned. Throughout the world, you're going to find materials that you can use to make all kinds of things to help you survive. Devices to disarm traps, different types of clothes so that certain groups of people won't attack you, weapons, medical kits, and loads more. This system is very basic, and finding new raw materials in the world often opens up the ability to make new things. Although you can also find blueprints dotted around the world as well. Although this also leads to the RNG aspect, as for instance in one playthrough I had to repair a pipe so that people had access to clean drinking water. But to do that I needed the blueprint for a device to mend the pipe. The only problem was that the blueprint was absolutely nowhere to be found, anywhere at all on the map. As We Happy Few is a survival game, you have to manage several meters in order to survive. Health, fatigue, hunger, thirst, and possibly illness, depending on whether your hunger reaches a point where you need to eat rancid food. This is another one of the problems I found in the game. The bars, in my opinion, depleted far too quickly, and the resources you need are far too sparse in the world. As you explore the world, the bars deplete pretty fast naturally, and unless you are well stocked with supplies, which are hard to find, you'll find yourself caught short more times than you'd care to count. You can fill canteens with water, which helps with managing the thirst meter, but because good quality food is very rare, you'll be reliant on rotten and rancid food that you'll find in dilapidated houses more often than not. Once you consume this, you'll have a very high chance of becoming sick, which can potentially kill you unless you find special pills, which, again, you have to rely on finding in the world. If you do happen to be sick, your bars drop dramatically, leading to you being close to dying of thirst and hunger. All of this is also made worse by the fact that your fatigue bar means that you need regular sleep in order to have any form of stamina meter that's usable in combat. When you sleep, your hunger and thirst meters drop again. The juggling act of managing these bars take up the lion's share of the game, and detracts too much, in my opinion, from the fun aspects of the game, such as exploration of the world and the missions themselves. This is something that needs to be balanced in the future, so that you can spend more time hitting people with cricket bats, and less time crawling around looking in bedside tables for food. In your hunt for food, there's a good chance that you'll have to trespass into people's homes. This leads to another of the game's flaws, in my opinion. the combat. Whilst it has the potential of being quite fun in the vein of something like Condemned Criminal Origins, with visceral hand-to-hand combat, the fighting mechanics in this game essentially boil down to a watered-down version of the Elder Scrolls combat, where you take a swing at someone, back up, and then you wait for them to miss, and then you have another go. It's dull, it's unoriginal, and it's very easy to get swarmed by multiple enemies without many ways to deal with them. If you're tired as well, you can count yourself screwed, as you only get 1 or 2 strikes before being too exhausted to throw anything. So what happens if you die? Well, one of 2 things. Permadeath is an option in We Happy Few. If you have this switched on, all progress you've made is lost, and you'll go back to the first time you wake up in your safe house with no mission progress saved and all items/blueprints gone. Permadeath is optional, and if you turn it off, then you will wake up in the nearest safe house with most of your items still there, although you will lose a handful of resources as a punishment, and your missions will stay untouched. With the current state of RNG and rate of stat decay, I feel that permadeath is somewhat unviable. It's very easy to die, and in games where you basically are just trying to survive the night, this isn't such an issue. But in We Happy Few, the point is that you are working your way through a story. And if you have permadeath on and you are repeating the same handful of missions over and over again, it becomes rather boring, rather fast. You also have an option of having second wind, where if you get dropped, you can come back, and as long as you quickly consume a healing item, then you can continue as you were. That's handy if you're in the middle of something and you get blindsided by a group of random angry residents who don't approve of you breaking into their house at 1 in the morning looking for some scraps of metal. We've mentioned some of the game's shortcomings, so let's move on to something that I'm rather fond of here, the aesthetic. 99% of survival games fail to grab my interest, but this one did based on the setting and the feel of the world. The dystopian take on 1960s England, where everyone is on antidepressants, is very unique and interesting, and was enough to make me want to overlook the shortcomings to explore it. Most of the lore is told through notes that you find in the world and gives you a glimpse into people's lives and how they dealt with joy, or the lack of it. The world itself, as mentioned before, is procedurally generated, and for the most part it looks very nice. Despite a few repeat textures and some odd clipping here and there, the game looks and runs well, with areas looking distinct, with run-down, dilapidated buildings where former Joy addicts congregate to the uniform, clean and colourful buildings in which the Joy addicts inhabit. Another sticking point here for me is the sound. The soundtrack is limited, and whilst it does a decent job of setting the tone, it grates after a short time, with the same handful of tracks being played on repeat for the entirety of your game time. The theme changes when you consume joy are welcome, and when you are nauseated or sick, the effect changes are nicely done too, but a few extra tracks would not go amiss. Voice acting by large is also of a decent quality. The crazy one-liners are delivered with expected attitude, or when someone screams downer in your general direction, you soon know about it. A lot of the one-liners are often repeated and become tiring quickly. Once you've told someone to fuck off for the 100th time, it kind of loses its meaning. I think that overall in its current state, We Happy Few isn't a bad game. It's not a great game by any stretch, but it's definitely not the game I for certain was expecting. Misleading marketing and deliberate hiding of key gameplay details has led to many people expecting something that they just didn't get here. With the addition of more missions, fixing the RNG so that required items can actually be obtained, and tweaking of the management of your resources so that feels like less of a grind, We Happy Few can be a standout title in the survival crafting genre. It's just not quite there yet. That was my early impressions of We Happy Few. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, to leave a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos in the future, maybe consider subscribing. Hope you all have a great day, and I will see you guys next time.